Before starting today's video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to encourage us to provide the best. I had recently relocated to a new apartment, and being a cash-strapped post-grad, I had almost nothing except a few boxes of my belongings from my parents' house. Though it felt great to finish school and have my own place, I lacked furniture. Given my financial situation, I hoped to find something passable on the free section of Facebook Marketplace. Anyone who has searched for furniture on this platform knows that it is not an easy task. Many couches are held together with duct tape or similar substances. I was not in a position to be picky, but I hoped to find something that could at least last me until I had saved enough money to purchase a higher quality one. After scrolling for over an hour and going back a week in the listings, I refreshed the page and saw a new post titled, "Brand new couch, never used, free for pickup." The ad had just gone up, and I knew I had to act fast to secure the couch. The sofa was in perfect condition, and I quickly responded to the seller, expressing my interest in taking it off their hands. Within 3 minutes, I received a response stating that the couch was mine if I could pick it up that night after 9 p.m. Although I was initially taken aback by the late pickup time, I reasoned that the seller might have been working until then, so I agreed to the arrangement. When it was almost 8:30 p.m., I texted the seller to inform them that I was on my way to collect the couch. Upon entering the guy's address into my GPS, I quickly realized that he lived in an extremely remote location. While I reside next to the Rocky Mountains where there aren't many people around, this individual was seriously in the middle of nowhere. My GPS indicated that it would take me 45 minutes to reach his house, so I swiftly set off on my way. As I drove, the housing developments became increasingly sparse, and eventually my GPS directed me onto some sketchy one-way dirt roads. After approximately 10 minutes, my GPS informed me that I had arrived at my destination. Sure enough, I saw a reasonably well-maintained house, but there was no other civilization for miles. To my surprise, I had mobile phone reception, and I immediately texted the guy to let him know that I had arrived. Within seconds, he responded with a simple, "Okay." I assumed that he was ready to receive me, so I walked up to the front door and knocked. To my surprise, I heard a muffled voice respond from just behind the door, instructing me to come inside because the door was unlocked. Upon peering inside, I realized that the situation was unusual. The house was completely dark, with no lights on. This was before cell phones had flashlights, so the only source of illumination was the moonlight filtering through a window. I called out a greeting, and someone responded from a door on my left that was open, leading to a basement. The person invited me to come downstairs, saying that the couch was ready to be moved. Feeling uneasy, I replied that I needed to leave and made my exit, realizing that the situation was too strange for my liking. After turning around, I pushed the front door open and ran back to my car. I quickly unlocked it, got in, and relocked the doors. Glancing back at the house, I saw no one had chased me, but through one of the windows, I could make out 4 shadowy figures staring at my car. I sped away from there and drove straight back to my apartment. When I got home, I checked my phone and saw 3 new messages from the guy's number. The first one asked why I had left, followed by one asking if I still wanted the couch. But the third one was the most unsettling. It simply read, "You're lucky." This incident was by far the most disturbing experience of my life, and it has caused me to swear off Facebook Marketplace or any similar platform. To this day, I'm convinced that those guys in that house had no intention of selling me a couch. A few weeks back, I had to travel to an unfamiliar small town to search for a suitable living arrangement for my upcoming school term. I was traveling solo and had conducted extensive research on Facebook Marketplace for apartments in the area. Consequently, I had managed to schedule several viewings. The first viewing was in a remote residential area later in the afternoon. I had corresponded with the landlord via email and was requested to call an hour before the meeting to confirm my attendance. I obliged and called him an hour prior, but he did not answer. As the time drew closer, I started walking towards the location, hoping that the landlord would turn up. About an hour later, he called, inquiring if I was still on my way. I replied that I was nearby and would arrive shortly. However, his response took me by surprise. He was infuriated and informed me that I was not supposed to arrive for another hour. I soon realized that my phone, which was quite old, did not automatically update the time when I switched time zones. Regrettably, I had forgotten to adjust the time manually and was an hour early. I apologized and explained my situation, but the landlord remained agitated. Although I knew that I was at fault, I found his level of anger disproportionate to the situation. I offered to wait outside until the agreed time, but he vehemently declined. At this point, warning bells started ringing in my head, but I brushed them aside as I was desperate for accommodation. I decided to kill time before the scheduled house tour by grabbing a bite at a nearby eatery. When the appointed hour arrived, I met with the landlord, who appeared to be in his 50s. To be frank, his appearance was unpalatable, with torn clothes and a disheveled appearance that seemed like he hadn't bathed in weeks. I felt uneasy and wanted to leave immediately. However, given the scarcity of available properties, I decided to stay. As we discussed the house details, I couldn't help but notice a young man sneaking out of the house through a back exit. He looked dodgy, even more so than the person I was conversing with. Upon spotting us, he bolted to his car and drove away. This incident thoroughly disturbed me, and I queried the landlord about the individual's identity. He responded that it was someone he had given a tour to earlier. At this juncture, the landlord began asking me a barrage of atypical questions that landlords don't typically ask, such as my age and field of study, all while maintaining an unblinking stare. I tried to provide evasive answers as possible, but his questions made me increasingly uncomfortable. Finally, we entered the house, which appeared decent from the exterior. However, as soon as we stepped inside, it was evident that the place had not been properly maintained. I followed the man around the house, examining each room. Every time I inquired about the house's condition, he dodged the question, claiming it was unfinished. After we finished looking at the rooms, he suggested showing me a shed in the backyard. Before I could respond, he led me outside to a detached shed away from the street. Upon opening the door, I noticed stairs leading down into total darkness. The man flipped a switch, but no light came on. Oddly, he began walking down the stairs as if he expected no light to turn on. At the bottom, he stood motionless in the dark and asked me to follow. In shock, I said nothing and looked back at the house, spotting another man in the backyard doorway. I panicked and fled into the woods without looking back. After running about a half mile, I turned around and saw no one. I realized I was lost in the forest at sunset, possibly being pursued. Fortunately, my phone had service, and I found my way back to the hotel without incident. Upon researching the house, I discovered it had been abandoned for 3 years. The Facebook Marketplace post I had responded to had been deleted. Although I considered calling the police, I decided against it, assuming there was little they could do. It's possible that the men I encountered were homeless and had unknown intentions, but the entire ordeal was extremely disturbing. While browsing Facebook Marketplace for a pre-owned vehicle, my spouse and I stumbled upon a promising option. The asking price was reasonable, and we expressed our interest to the seller via text message. The seller appeared normal in our communication, and we arranged to meet in a public mall parking lot. However, the seller informed us that they would only be available after work at 5 p.m., so we agreed to meet at 5:30 p.m. instead. As planned, we arrived at the mall and identified our vehicle to the seller, but unfortunately, the seller texted us to inform us that they were running late. Initially, we thought it would be a brief delay of around 30 minutes, and we decided to kill some time by grabbing a bite to eat at the food court inside the mall. However, As time ticked by, our patience began to wear thin, and 2 hours had passed before we heard from the seller again. It was already late in the fall, and the mall was starting to clear out, causing us to worry about our safety. The seller then suggested that we meet at a gas station about 30 minutes away in a rougher part of the city. We searched for the address and discovered that it was located right off the interstate. The operating hours of the gas station caught my attention. It was not open 24/7 and had already closed. My spouse noticed several red flags regarding the entire scenario, but I was solely focused on the car and the deal we had discovered. We disregarded the warning signs, texted the seller that we would arrive in 30 minutes, and left the mall parking lot for the gas station. Upon arriving at the gas station, we immediately noticed how desolate the area was. Only a few vehicles were parked there. After a minute, my spouse pointed out the car, but it appeared to be in worse shape than the photos posted on Facebook Marketplace. The vehicle was located in a poorly lit area in the back of the parking lot, but I continued to approach it. However, my wife looked at me perplexed, and I suddenly noticed something amiss. Upon closer inspection, I saw a spike strip in the middle of the road, exactly where I needed to pull up next to the car. At that point, I realized that something was off. I returned to my vehicle and immediately left the premises, as my suspicions were confirmed. After returning home, I reported the entire incident to the police, but I never received any updates from them. The ad was taken down from Facebook Marketplace several days later, and I never discovered what happened. Nonetheless, this experience taught me to be more cautious when utilizing online services like Facebook Marketplace. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and sharing it to support me. The best is yet to come.